Today is Tuesday, January 9th. We'll tell you about Israel's new phase of war. The fighting is getting more intense outside of Gaza. And protesters back in the U.S. got the attention of President Biden. Also, the problems found so far with many of those Boeing MAX 9 planes after one had a mid-flight emergency. And what part of the plane was found in someone's backyard. Plus an update on a massive winter storm system. An iconic sports deal has now come to an end. And what's getting the most attention at this year's CES for all things tech. Those stories and more news to know next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Well, Israel says it's making the shift to a less intense phase of war in Gaza. But it seems fighting is getting more intense elsewhere, like in Lebanon. Israel launched an airstrike over southern Lebanon yesterday and killed an elite commander of the Hezbollah militia group. He's actually the most senior Hezbollah militant killed since Hamas, another Iranian-backed militia group, attacked Israel on October 7th, sparking the war in Gaza. Hezbollah has been firing rockets on Israel ever since. But some Israeli leaders say they've had enough, and if the attacks continue, they'll go to war with Lebanon too. Of course, it's not just Lebanon either. Israel has also been clashing with Iranian-backed militia in Yemen. And Reuters reports Israel has stepped up airstrikes in Syria, hoping to stop weapons supplies there from going to militia groups around the region. In Gaza, Israeli leaders say their military operation now involves fewer troops and airstrikes. American officials say they expect the transition will rely on more precise missions by smaller groups of elite Israeli forces. But even though the tactics will be different, the goals are the same: finding and killing Hamas leaders, destroying Hamas infrastructure, and rescuing hostages, which is all expected to take many more months. The hope is, though, these next few months don't involve as many civilian deaths or as much devastation as the last few months. The Hamas-controlled Gaza Health Ministry says more than 28,000 Palestinians have been killed in the war so far, so there's been international backlash, though Israel blames Hamas since the group operates in residential areas. Meanwhile, the New York Times says Israeli and American officials are trying to restore public order in the Gaza Strip. American Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Israel now on his fourth trip to the Middle East since October. He's apparently talking about how the Gaza Strip might function in the coming months, especially with regards to security and humanitarian aid, and how to contain the war as much as possible. To be continued. Here in the U.S., Americans upset with the war in Gaza continue to make their voices heard, with demonstrations that have gotten larger and more public. For example, protesters were able to interrupt President Biden yesterday as he was giving a campaign speech in South Carolina. They chanted, "Ceasefire now," as the president was speaking at a historic church in Charleston. Biden told them he understood their passion and said he's been working with the Israeli government to tame the conflict. Also yesterday, thousands of protesters demanding a ceasefire in Gaza blocked several New York City bridges and a tunnel, and that brought traffic to a standstill for huge crowds trying to get in or out of Manhattan, and hundreds of protesters ended up getting arrested. But don't expect that to stop them. Many of them have said they're going to keep escalating their displays anyway until there's a complete ceasefire. A couple of airlines discovered something troubling on their Boeing 737 MAX 9 jets. The same jets that were grounded when one of them recently came apart mid-flight. Both Alaska Airlines and United Airlines say they found some loose hardware that maintenance staff will remedy before the jets go back into circulation. And they are the only U.S. carriers who use the MAX 9s. But it's still not clear if that's the only problem, and if it'll be solved with a quick fix, since the National Transportation Safety Board is still investigating. Though the investigation is a little easier now, since the NTSB found the part that flew off. The 63-pound piece landed in the yard of a science teacher in a Portland, Oregon suburb, and it seemed to be in pretty good shape, so there's hope investigators will come to some conclusions. Even more surprising, an iPhone that was sucked out of the plane during the emergency was also found on the ground, and it still works. The man who found it says it was just lying there on the ground in airplane mode with its battery half full, and the screen, which was fully intact, showed a receipt for 2 checked bags on the very Alaska Airlines flight involved in the emergency. Now he's turning that over so the NTSB will have even more evidence to examine. In the meantime, all of the MAX 9 planes operating in the U.S. are still grounded, so more flight cancellations are expected today. As expected, a massive winter storm system has unleashed dangerous blizzard conditions in parts of the U.S., And today, even more Americans could be dealing with the same problems. The storm has shut down highways and left people stranded in the middle of the country, from the Texas Panhandle to Nebraska. And parts of the South, from Texas to Florida, got hailstorms, flooding, and powerful winds. It even brought the first tornado watch of the year. Now the storm is making its way east. It's bringing notable snowfall across more than half a dozen states, along with what the National Weather Service called ferocious blizzard conditions. Today, there are more severe storms in the forecast for places like Tallahassee, Florida, Savannah, Georgia, and Charleston, South Carolina. And in the Northeast, there could be significant flooding since a lot of rain is falling right after the first snowstorm of the year dropped more than half a foot of snow in multiple states. This latest storm looks like it will wrap up soon, but another one is expected to follow with a similar path, likely starting Friday. More news is still coming up, but first, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Around New Year's, it's easy to think about all the things we should be doing or that we could be doing. But what if we take a step back and think about the things we're already doing that make us feel good? Sometimes my therapist reminds me of all the things I'm already doing and that actually it's probably not a good idea to take on something new. And that's sometimes the reminder I need so I don't burn out. Or if you're ready for more, therapy can help you find your own strengths so you can ditch the extreme resolutions and make changes that actually stick. In fact, rough patches or taking a step backward is inevitable, so I always appreciate that a therapist is there over time, offering accountability, support, and professional guidance. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit BetterHelp.com/newsworthy today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to the news. The U.S. is facing another emergency nationwide blood shortage. The American Red Cross, which accounts for 40% of all blood donations in the U.S., put out a warning yesterday. It says the shortage is now so severe it can't provide enough blood to some of the hospitals that need it for patients. So some patients might be getting less blood than what they need, and hospitals might struggle to find any suitable matches for patients with rarer blood types, and surgeries might get canceled. Now the Red Cross is once again calling on Americans to replenish the supply. If you do want to make an appointment or find a blood drive near you, we've added a link in today's episode notes. Some of the biggest pharmaceutical giants in the world are expanding more into the business of fighting cancer. Just yesterday, both Johnson & Johnson and Merck announced plans to buy cancer therapy developers. J&J says it's going to buy Ambrx Biopharma for $2 billion. And with that, J&J will get some promising targeted cancer therapies. Separately, Merck says it's acquiring cancer drug developer Harpoon Therapeutics for about $680 million. That gives Merck access to some early-stage immunotherapies being tested for lung cancer and myeloma. This comes just about 6 weeks after AbbVie paid $10 billion to acquire Immunogen, which makes a key ovarian cancer drug. And just 1 month after Pfizer closed a $43 billion deal to buy cancer drug maker Seagen. The rest of the acquisitions are expected to close in the first half of this year. The biggest tech trade show of the year is underway in Las Vegas, setting the stage for all kinds of trends we can expect to see in 2024. We're talking about CES, formerly known as the Consumer Electronics Show. It officially kicks off today and runs through Friday. But CES-related events have actually been going on for a couple of days now. Some of the highlights so far include solar panels that look like stained glass, a phone that bends over backward, a thermometer that checks not only your temperature, but your heart and lungs. And as you might have guessed, a whole lot of artificial intelligence. For example, a grill that uses AI to make the perfect steak, a toothbrush that gives you feedback on your brushing technique, and a few Volkswagen models with ChatGPT ready to answer questions. Overall, the show is featuring more than 4,000 exhibitors like Amazon, Google, Honda, and L'Oreal, all revealing the latest in personal tech, transportation, healthcare, and a lot more. One of the most iconic endorsement deals in the history of pro sports is coming to a close. Golf legend Tiger Woods announced his nearly 30-year relationship with Nike is ending. That's, of course, a big change since Woods has been decked out in Nike swooshes ever since he first turned pro in 1996. And his traditional Sunday attire of a red Nike shirt, black hat, and black pants has even become synonymous with men's pro golf. At one point, Nike gave Tiger the richest sponsorship deal ever for an athlete. Now that's all ending amicably. Woods said his time with Nike has been, quote, filled with so many amazing moments and memories. And Nike called Woods one of the greatest athletes the world has ever seen and wished him the best in the future. Nike still sponsors other big-name golf pros. As for Woods, he's expected to return to competitive golf next month, so we'll have to wait to see what he'll be wearing. College football has a new top team. The Michigan Wolverines beat the Washington Huskies in the national championship game last night, 34-13. It wasn't a huge surprise since the Wolverines went into the game as the #1 team in the country with an undefeated record. Plus, they're part of the winningest program in college football history. Still, this was Michigan's first national title since 1997, and it caps a season of off-the-field controversy for the Wolverines. The team's head coach was suspended for the first 3 games because of recruiting violations. Then the NCAA opened a second investigation into the Wolverines in October for alleged sign stealing, and the coach got another 3-game suspension. Both NCAA investigations into Michigan are ongoing, but for now, the team and their fans are celebrating like it's 1997. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. But first, support for this episode comes from Green Chef. Need an easy win in 2024? Green Chef makes eating well easy with plans to fit every lifestyle, from keto to vegan to just looking to eat more balanced meals. My husband and I recently made herb turkey and kale bulgur bowls with apricots, pistachio, some crema, and tomato. It was surprisingly simple and so flavorful. My toddler even ate it all, yes, the kale too, and he loved the little apricots in it. And of course, my husband and I thought it was delicious. With Green Chef, I can count on meals that are good for my taste buds, good for my body, and good for the planet. And good for my sanity too, since everything I need for each meal is delivered to my door. No wonder Green Chef is the #1 meal kit for clean eating. By the way, Green Chef is now owned by HelloFresh, so it has an even wider array of meal plans to choose from, so there's something for everyone. Go to greenchef.com/60newsworthy and use the code 60newsworthy to get 60% off plus 20% off your next 2 months. Again, that's 60% off plus 20% off your next 2 months when you go to greenchef.com/60newsworthy and use that code 60newsworthy. Okay, now back to Trivia Tuesday. Today's trivia question is, the Rockettes dance troupe most famously perform at what venue? You can play along with us in our weekly roundup email that comes out each Friday. Simply sign up to get it at thenewsworthy.com/email or find the link in today's episode notes. As for last week's trivia question, what color do babies see first? The answer is red. But it takes a little bit. Newborn babies can tell the difference between light and dark, but they really can't see actual colors for about 8 weeks. Doctors say once they see colors, they typically start to see red, especially when they're looking at the contrast between red and white. Then within the next month or so, they start seeing light blue and some greens. Optometrists say yellows and purples are tougher for small babies, and pastels are the hardest, at least for the first few months. Eventually, most babies see their full range of colors at around 5 months old. All right, thank you so much for listening and sharing the show. We'll be back with another news roundup for you tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.